Okay, our next speaker is a familiar face here at the global conferences. Today he is going to take a topic that I think everyone is familiar with, good versus evil. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Trend Micro. Give a nice round of applause to Mr. Raimund.
Thank you, Brett. Good afternoon, good almost evening, everybody. So let's see if we could get, yeah, perfect. We have the slides here. So actually what I want to do as a security vendor, I thought it's 5 o'clock. The next speaker is way more important, so I thought I'd make a bit of fun out of our industry. We are great in developing buzzwords. And some of the buzzwords are really bad, but let's be honest, it's working, otherwise we would not do it. Especially in the US, people are buying products just on buzzwords. Europe, Japan, a little bit different. But when you think about buzzwords, and if this one is working, oh, we have another one. Haha. If you think about it, when I ask customers, and I did this at the RSA conference recently, what you have invested recently in IT security? Cloud security, of course, is a big term. But yeah, on the other hand, we also could say it's cloudy. Why don't we call it just server securities? Because what we just protect is servers. Next generation endpoint, great. Next gen endpoints are really next gen at the moment. But how do we call them in 2 years? Old gen endpoints? Breach detection system. That's a term for quite a few years, and it's a, I would say, descriptive term, so I would accept this one. Endpoint detection and response, that's relatively new. Gartner and other analysts coined this term. Security information and event management, in short, CM systems, the biggest vendors there, HP and IBM. And identity and access management, very descriptive, gets, I have to say, more and more important. But these are solutions companies are investing in. So to make it very clear, this presentation here is focused on content security in the enterprise space. If you want to see antivirus consumer bashing, today, tonight at ZDF at 11 p.m., somebody bashes antivirus and says, you don't need antivirus anymore. And that's exactly this. And I didn't know when I prepared this presentation that this will happen tonight at ZDF in the Frontal magazine. German channel, the international guest, if you could watch it, take a look. But I don't know yet what they're talking about. Here, disable your antivirus software, except Microsoft. That's cool. So you don't need to pay for it. But guess what happens when you have a monoculture? Guess why we see so much malware on Windows operating system? It's not the easiest to attack platform, but it has the highest market share. So guess what happens if you protect Microsoft with Microsoft? With this huge market share, the attackers will try everything to attack it, and they will have an easier life than trying to fool over 30 different anti-malware products. These are the leading vendors. If Microsoft wouldn't have any market share, I would totally agree. For example, if you want a safe smartphone, buy a Windows phone. Nobody attacks a Windows phone, no market share. Or even better, buy a BlackBerry. And it's even not new. Even my boss, our CEO, Eva Chen, already in 2008 said that our industry sucks. Because at this time, let's be honest, we really have been behind and we just relied too much on signatures. We needed to get a malware in, we analyzed the malware, we created the signatures, which was totally reactive. And her outcry was, we need to invest to be more proactive, because already at this time, we saw a lot of new malware per day. Nowadays, we are talking about, in average, 350,000 brand new malware per day. It's really morphing fast, so signatures don't work that well anymore. You still need them, because we still see some configure infections, even in Germany at a power plant. So you still could use signatures for the old stuff, for the well-known stuff, but for modern stuff, it doesn't work. So it shouldn't be AV is dead, it should be more maybe pattern matching is dead or close to that. And what is funny, everybody's talking about viruses. And this is how we envisioned and Trend Micro viruses back in 1996. And since 2000, we don't have viruses anymore. I love you already was a self-replicating worm. So just using the term antivirus is totally outdated. This is why we normally use the term anti-malware. But in the public mind, it's still called antivirus. But as I mentioned, viruses don't really exist anymore. These are binaries which could stand by themselves and which download additional content from the internet to change their shape, to change their behavior. This is how it looks nowadays. You get an invoice, and they even used my home address and my real telephone number, which is also not magic. Easy to get. And everybody tells you don't click on something when it's written in bad German. This is pretty good, huh? And look at the email attachment. The date when it was sent out, plus my name.zip. So it was a unique piece of malware just for me. And this is what you really don't detect with pattern matching anymore. And this is happening over and over again. So for these, let me phrase it, targeted attacks, where they really change the malware all the time and on the fly, pattern matching doesn't work. Other technology picks it up, but not traditional pattern matching. And that's the stuff we need to fight nowadays. Not traditional viruses. This is not a virus, this is a Trojan. In this case, it was a keylogger. It was even not a piece of ransomware. At the moment, ransomware gets all the attention, but this stuff still gets some attention. And we didn't detect it with a name. It was just gen.something, because our heuristic, our behavioral analytics got it when it arrived. It's not only us who said that AV industry sucks. Symantec, who does a lot of consumer business, also stated antivirus software is dead. Firm turns to minimizing damage from breaches. This was 2014. But as Symantec changes their direction so often, even this is not true anymore. This was before ransomware was widely known. Now it has changed a little bit. With ransomware, everybody's back to antivirus, highly visible, even if these are no viruses. Okay, and if you haven't seen this video yet, do it. That's hilarious. And when I turn 70, I want to look like John McAfee with 70, almost 70 in this video. It's amazing. He shows you how to deinstall McAfee software by shooting onto the computer. So for me, it was clear that when Intel Security acquired McAfee, that they will rename it as fast as possible to Intel Security, because you don't want to be connected with the founder's name. But now Intel is somehow offloading McAfee again, and now they call it back to McAfee. And when you listen to some recent interviews from John McAfee about the Vault 7 CIA leak and so on, really interesting that they want to sell the software under this name. But highly recommended to watch this on YouTube. And then Yevgeny Kaspersky. Last year in Rome, I was at a security conference, a big one, and I was talking about server security. Yevgeny was talking about the dark ages of cybersecurity. We all fail. So it wasn't a very positive message. Well, my message was, hey, you could do something, you just need to treat systems differently. But maybe this explains why they need to diversify the product line. So you know what's the latest product of Kaspersky is? Sweat the Toilette, a perfume. And I didn't get a sample yet, but Sweat the Toilette, toilette means restroom in German. Does it smell of dirty restrooms? I'm not sure. And I at first thought this is really a product line. And then I figured out it's just a marketing gag. They send it to all the editors all around the globe, but it's a packaging, they really have it. They produced it to highlight that cyber threats are out there. I don't think that we need to highlight that cyber threats are around after we had the ransomware waves, and we still face ransomware every day. I think every user now, no matter if it's end user or enterprise customer, knows that malware is around and that malware is very prominent. And this really has to do with the threat landscape evolution. It goes in waves. Pre-2003, I would say, all the malware was there to generate attention and nothing else. Melissa, Onel de Guzman, now David L. Smith, American, he wrote it and named it after an exotic dancer. Onel de Guzman, year 2000, university student in the Philippines, wasn't happy with the grade and obviously wanted to show that he could code. He did I Love You. And I Love You had a big impact. It overloaded Exchange server all around the globe. This was highly visible malware. The same with Sasa, Netsky, this kind of stuff which was written by a 17-year-old German. But it was not for profit. It was somehow for fun, or they didn't really know what they've been doing. This changed with the first wave of spams, where we in the security industry had pretty good gateway filters, and we have been able to identify the few individual spam servers, and we just blocked it. So the bad guys figured out, hey, we just hijack innocent computers, big IP range, and we send spam from them, and we sell this as a service. This was, I would say, the first business model of the cybercrime industry. And since then, it's developed. But what all this malware has in common is it was not visible. Because if it's visible, if everybody talks about, you don't make really money. And this has changed with ransomware. And out of the sudden, everybody figured out, oops, maybe we should go back to a backup strategy. Because obviously we forgot about it. What's dangerous about this is that when the cyber criminals are coming up with a new business model, everybody picks it up. The security players, the medias, everybody. So a few years ago, 2010, we talked about APT, Advanced Persistent Threats. The Chinese are hacking companies all around the globe. They're stealing our intellectual property. You need a sandbox to protect against it. And this is the holy grail of IT security. And more companies invested in sandboxing. And the bad guys invested in fooling the sandboxes. And then this is still happening, of course. 0 days are still happening. Advanced persistent threat targeted attacks are still happening. Cool tools are still happening. But somebody who wants to do a state-sponsored attack needs to spend $500,000 to get access to these tools. So it's not mainstream. But every time such a thing happens, 30 days for an iPhone, of course everybody picks it up and everybody panics. But the probability that you are a victim of such a thing is unlikely if you're not government or if you don't have a lot of intellectual property to be stolen from you. This one as well, this clearly defines what attack tools they're using and how they look at switching of endpoint anti-malware, which for me is a confirmation that you need a multi-layered approach against these kind of attacks. Because they always focus on the weakest link, which is a human being, which is a PC, which is a local installed software. And the question is why they lost the data, but yeah, maybe one of you want to ask this later on, why it's always US losing data. Advanced persistent threats, this term APT, everybody focused on, every company invested on. This was high on the hype-o-meter. Because again, most of the attacks haven't been advanced persistent threats, no zero-day, just targeted attacks, like the fake invoice I showed you. It was just tuned to look that it comes from a reliable source. It contains something, a vulnerability, an exploit, but it's not something brand new. It's not something sophisticated. It's normal stuff. Why should you burn a sophisticated weapon if you know that companies in average need 90 days to patch their systems? So the bad guys have a window of opportunity. Then we had ransomware, and everything changed. Out of the sudden, since 2015, we talk about backups again. Everybody now knows about bitcoins, correct? Because that's how you pay against ransomware. And out of the sudden, malware was highly visible. And you know how well a sandbox works against ransomware variants? Not very good. And a lot of the vendors who only focused on targeted attacks, APT protection, their revenue dropped. Because out of the sudden, also the company said, I have a problem. When people need to transfer patients from one hospital to another because they can't work anymore because all the data sets are encrypted, that's scary. When police stations need to pay money because the ransomware encrypted evidence and they don't have a backup, that's really scary. So at the moment, malware is totally in our face. And we could use it to tighten controls in an enterprise environment. And out of the sudden, the endpoint is hot again. For a while, everybody was saying breach detection system, network stuff, and so on. And now, out of the sudden, everybody's looking at the Garden multi-quadrant and other things. And okay, we as vendors, we move a little bit, but it's not too much. And interesting enough, when you look at here, you also will see Microsoft at the list, and it actually doesn't score so badly. But when you read the report, it has, I would say, a relatively okay score if you have a Windows 10 only environment. Who of you only has Windows 10 desktops and Windows 10 servers? Or the latest generation, not Windows 10 servers, but the latest generation. Most of your servers likely are Linux, correct? Microsoft doesn't offer Linux products. So if you're Windows 10 only, based on Gartner, consider Microsoft for IT security. And why not? It normally comes with your corporate contract. What we learn from the cyber criminals is that there is no silver bullet. Some vendors try to sell you the stuff with 100% detection rate, and that's the only solution you need against malware, whatever, what kind. If you hear such a marketing message here at CeBIT, run away. We actually hear it a lot in the US, to be honest. Everybody wants the next silver bullet, and they even don't test the products. They buy first and try to install later. Really bad. But it's working for security vendors. So why shouldn't they do it? Reality is that for the bad guys, it's a business. It's a cybercrime industry, and it's very profitable. They don't pay any taxes. So if you think about it, years ago, they made money with spam bots. Then we delivered better filters. The customers found ways to control this. So the price per spam bot declined. From a lot of money per spam bot, out of the sudden, you didn't earn much money. Then they went to banking Trojans to grab your credit card information, to grab your PIN, man-in-the-middle attacks, all this kind of stuff, online banking. What was the reaction of the bank? Multi-factor authentication. So out of the sudden, it wasn't that great for the cybercrime industry anymore. They needed to do sophisticated man-in-the-middle and everything. And sorry, this one is malformatted. Now we have crypto ransomware, and this brings in the money. But you know what? In our threat report, we predict, and we released this in November last year, that ransomware will level off, that we will not see that many new ransomware families. It's still busy, still too many people pay cyber criminals, but it's leveling off. We've been right. we've already seen less new variants in Q1 so far. You know why? Because now more people do backup, more people have invested, so the wave of ransomware will be not that visible anymore. And at RSA, I saw a lot of companies who just had ransomware protection on their logo. Guess what will happen with the companies? Same like with the companies who focused on APT. Their revenue will decline because they focus too much on one single issue. And why they still do this? The malware industry, the bad guys, continue to develop themselves. It's like, with signatures. The bad guy starts to create money while we still develop signatures. That's why signature-based approaches don't work that well anymore. This is why you need machine learning and other stuff. In product development, it's even worse. The cybercriminals come up with a new technology, we develop a product against it, and meanwhile the cybercriminal does this. Because he's ahead, it's a race. So if you only bet on one protection technology, really bad. And this is why a lot of these next-gen companies, a lot of these cybersecurity startups, even if they have a cool technology, they only focus on one thing. And their cash burn rate is enormous. And you have a lot of VCs investing in them, but 3 years later they pull the plug, and the startups try to sell themselves to established players like us, and if we don't buy them, they disappear, and that's sad. Because some of the technology is really cool, but it focuses too much on a certain specific problem. What are the bad guys working on now? BEC, business email compromise, is all over. You receive an email, and you transfer money based on it. But of course, only happens in US, or the wild, wild west of data security never will happen in Europe. Joke. This was in Austria. FACC is an aircraft part manufacturer, and they transferred 52 million euro, and it disappeared. Now they have been able to get 10 million back. They fired the CEO, CFO, and so on. Okay, Austria will not happen in Germany. This was Leoni last year, one of the largest car parts manufacturers delivering all the cabling and everything. They're number 4 worldwide in this, I think. They lost 40 million euro. Public listed company, so they needed to report it. Business process compromise is also in our threat report. Imagine if you could pre-clear shipping containers through customs. So customs thinks the container is cleared. How much money will a drug lord pay you to do this for you? Or let's talk about firearms in containers and so on. This happened. And the big cyber heist last year, which was a Bangladesh bank, it was $81 million. They wanted to get 950 million, and they only got 81. But that's still a pretty big amount of money, or not? Tesco Bank, December last year in UK, they knew exactly that the fraudulent system will kick in by transfers over £400. So they grabbed money from a lot of accounts over a weekend. But yeah, also not bad. £2.5 million for a weekend job, not bad. But it's not a weekend job, it needs a lot of preparation. This is how it works. They research, they find a proper target, they do social engineering, then they own one machine, they move very slowly. So the complete preparation takes longer than 3 months. And then the jackpot in 1 day or 1 week. That's how it works. They are in your environment and they learn about your processes. We show this at CeBIT. You know what's really nasty? Printer is not well protected in every environment. So imagine you are printing invoices and your IBAN number is on the invoice. And the attacker intercepts the printer spooler and just changes the IBAN number. You could see this at our booth at Hall 6. Printers, printer servers, and so on are badly protected. Imagine how much money you could make when you when you infect a big incasso company. What to do? This is all bad, and we know that the bad guys are faster. What we are doing, That's my expertise. We work a lot with law enforcement. We do a lot of cybercrime reports. We work with the BKA. We work with Europol, Interpol. And we are happy when we help Interpol to arrest some of these guys. But it's not very scalable, to be honest. We work a long time with law enforcement per case. What we also could do, not just relying on one technology, but delivering effective layer protection. For example, in the ransomware, in an enterprise space, you could filter out over 99% of the ransomware at the gateway. So the users never are confronted with, should I click on it or not? Should I call the help desk? It's just gone at the gateway. That's reality. So endpoint is still needed as a last resort, but it's definitely not the best solution against ransomware. But actually, to do this, I just show you, based on my experience, what layered protection means. It's a hell of stuff. It's a lot. And in an enterprise environment with a lot of employees, you could control it. In an SMB environment, you better rely on external partners to do it. Managed services, managed security services, because it's too much stuff. It's too complex to manage it, to be honest. We research and publish a lot. We have a big vulnerability research team. Last year, we reported 678 vulnerabilities, all different vendors. And you know what we do with this? We burn the vulnerabilities for state-sponsored actors. We actually buy them. Just last week, we paid $860K for vulnerabilities, but not to attack others, but to protect our users and to inform the affected vendors. This just happened last week. Server security, configuration mistakes, it's not malware. Vulnerabilities, it's not malware. This could be malware. This could be malware. This could be malware. But the biggest mistakes are not linked to malware. And vulnerabilities, as I mentioned, it's not 0 day. X is when somebody knows about the vulnerabilities and you need time to patch, 90 days at least. And the bad guys know this, so they have a window of opportunity for you. And under GDPR, if you have ransomware infections next year, good luck. Somebody manipulated your data. You need to report this. Just a hint. So one-trick ponies don't work. You need a lot of different technologies. And in summary, don't believe every hype. Don't be a victim of analysts and vendors promising you 100%. Be careful with one-trick ponies, companies who only sell you one thing and tell you, hey, that's all you need. If somebody offers 100% here at the fairground, run away. Impossible. Be sarcastic like me. Maybe I'm too long in this industry. And for me, really, security basics first. Configuration errors are the biggest problem. Thank you. Brett.